Welcome to FreeLimbs, the only app to separate your hands and feet and help you achieve four-way limb independence on the drums. Different workouts are constructed to develop your coordination in a variety of musical genres or styles. Each workout contains dozens of ostinato patterns and thousands or millions, if you use variations, of exercises that will separate your right foot from your right hand, or from both hands if you're serious about your drumming, and your left foot too, unless you want to be called a tripod drummer. The workouts depend on what subscription plan you purchased. The world rhythms, swing jazz, and the linear workouts are only available in the Pro version. The good news is, you can try all content in your free 14-day trial. Every workout summary will show you which genres of music require the coordination in the workout's exercises, plus examples of famous songs you'll be able to play when you ace the workout. Workouts have a preview of one of the many patterns you'll be practicing. This pattern usually repeats throughout a song section and is called an ostinato, the blue circles. The preview features an arrangement of randomly selected exercises, the red circles, that will separate your hands and feet against the ostinato pattern. You can preview this sample exercise with or without the accompanying drumless play-along track. FreeLimbs contains 300-plus professionally crafted tracks for every music style to make your practice enjoyable. Don't worry about the colored circles yet. We'll get to these, and you'll see how much easier it is to read these compared to music notation for drums. As you drill down to see what a workout contains, you'll find out that many workouts contain groups of exercises sorted by their complexity or difficulty. For example, in the straight backbeat pack, you'll find a groove patterns group with eighth notes exercises more suitable for beginners, as well as groups with 16th notes for intermediate and advanced drummers. Some groups are specific to a song section, and others to the style of playing the drums. If you are curious what makes certain styles of music make people bop their heads and move their bodies, some workouts contain a longer summary with background information about the music style and a bit of easy-to-grasp music theory with audible examples.
1 beat and 2 beat and 3 beat and 4 beat and
When you drill down a workout group, you'll see the individual ostinato patterns, again sorted by their complexity or difficulty. Every pattern contains a series of exercises designed to free one or more of your limbs against the repeating pattern. In this example, the ostinato is accented eighth notes. Your right hand is playing the pattern on the hi-hat, the blue circles. Your left hand is playing a steady backbeat on the snare drum, the green circle. The limb that's being freed is your right foot playing the bass drum, the red circles. The exercises for this particular pattern are designed to separate your right foot from your hands by placing 1 to 4 kicks before the backbeat, on and after the backbeat in all possible positions. Let's see what the individual exercises look like. Note that these are still previews, and the actual practice will happen on a different screen. The first few exercises will teach you how to play the repeating pattern, one limb at a time. In this example, you'll start with the right hand on the hi-hat and play only that. Once you're comfortable, you'll add the left hand backbeat on the snare drum. You should play the ostinato until you internalize it, which means you don't feel you need to look at the screen or think about what you're playing. Only when you feel you own the ostinato, you should start practicing the exercises with the bass drum to separate your foot. The separation exercises start with a single kick on the bass drum. The single kick exercises go through all permutations where you can place the bass drum. You start with the bass drum placed on the first position before the backbeat, then on the backbeat, then on the second position before the backbeat, then on the second position after the backbeat, and so on and so forth until the single kick has been played on all possible positions. Then, displacements for 2 kicks are created. Then 3, and finally 4 kicks. Here's what it sounds like. Depending on the style of music, on every 4, 6, or 8 exercises, you'll get a checkpoint exercise. It will test your coordination by shuffling and stitching together the exercises you have played so far. This particular checkpoint exercise strings together all single kick exercises you've practiced. Here's what it sounds like. You should not move to playing 2 or more kicks before you've aced a checkpoint several times. Remember, every time you open a checkpoint exercise, it will generate a new reality check for you, containing a new, random arrangement of the individual exercises you have practiced. When you complete all separation exercises for an ostinato, you'll get a final mastery exercise that will test you using combinations of all exercises in the set. Because these can be hundreds, you will practice a shorter version which you can customize and even add empty measures for improvisation or fills. The difference between the checkpoint and mastery exercises is that in checkpoint exercises, you only play hits with the separated limb on either side of the backbeat. In mastery exercises, these halves are combined, so you're playing separation patterns that span the entire grid. Again, the mastery exercise will generate new arrangements every time you open it. So try to be honest to yourself whether you've really mastered an ostinato before you move to another one. Once you've mastered an ostinato, you will have the coordinated independence to play 1,000 grooves using that ostinato alone. And when you complete an entire workout, you will have the freedom to play countless grooves within the workout's genre or style. Let's move on to see what an exercise practice looks like. At the top of the screen, you can see the name of the pattern against which you'll be freeing a limb or two. This might not be visible at lower resolutions. You then have a button to star an exercise and add it to your favorites. After it, an icon showing you how long you have been practicing this exercise at any of the tempos and in how many sessions. Then, there's the name of the exercise you'll be practicing and the current practice step. You'll learn more about the steps a bit later. You also have a toolbar with various controls to customize your practice. Volume control, tempo and play-along selector, ostinato instrument picker, a widget to control the swing of the exercise, and a super powerful button to add complexity to your practice if you're an advanced drummer. There are more ways to customize checkpoint and mastery exercises, which you'll learn about later. The exercise view is where all the action happens. This view will show you what instruments you'll play and how much to accent them. On checkpoint and mastery exercises, it's going to show you what you're currently playing and what's coming next so you can prepare. Finally, at the bottom, you have navigation buttons to take you through all the steps for you to have a meaningful, productive, and enjoyable practice. You'll learn about these in a minute. Let's get back to the exercise view. It takes most of the screen, so you can clearly see what you should be playing, even if you're using FreeLimbs on a smaller screen tablet or smartphone. On the left-hand side, you can see which instruments you'll be playing on the drum set. They are abbreviated to save screen space, but if you're not familiar with the abbreviations, simply hover over them and you'll be able to see the instrument's full name. The notes you'll be playing are drawn as circles. When you're practicing a groove on a grid with equal note subdivision, notation becomes redundant, so the stems and flags become more noise than information. The notes on most instruments have distinct colors, so it's easier for you to see and follow them. As a general rule, the blue-colored notes are reserved for the instruments which will be playing the repeating pattern, also known as the ostinato. In this example, that's the 8th note ostinato on the hi-hat. The red notes are reserved for the instrument and limb which you'll be separating against the ostinato. In this example, that's the bass drum. The snare drum line is colored in green, except when the limb playing the snare is being separated in the exercise. The gray circles indicate a pause, better known in music as a rest. You don't play anything on these circles. You may have noticed that some of the colorful circles are filled, while others are outlined or hollow. The filled circles represent accented hits, where you strike the instrument harder than usual. The hollow circles are softer, unaccented hits. In some exercises, you'll also see dashed hollow circles. These are the ghost notes, also known as grace notes. These are played very softly and can be felt more than heard when played along with music. When in doubt, click the Legend button to remind yourself what the various circles mean. The only place where you're going to see a filled circle with an arc on top is on the snare drum. This indicates a special hit called the rim shot. A rim shot is played by striking the center of the drum head with your stick and, at the same time, hitting the rim of the drum. This produces a thick and powerful sound, which most musicians call a backbeat. This is probably the most important hit you'll ever need to master to play most of today's modern music. Finally, at the top of the view, you'll see the note count. While it's not required that you learn how to count, you should definitely do it. Counting, especially at slower tempos, will help you feel the space between the notes. Also, FYI, we are not aware of a single pro drummer who doesn't know how to count. Those of you who understand music notation might wonder why the grid is cut in half and displays half a measure, or bar. The count implies that we're playing 16th notes, yet the grid only has 8 notes. The reason for this is simple. Once you've played the bass drum permutations on these 8 notes, you're going to repeat yourself on the second half of the measure. That's why you'll also see 6 notes instead of the 12 quarter note triplets when practicing jazz. Now let's have a look at the exercise steps. On the preview step, you can see how your limbs should line up and hear how the exercise should sound. If you're not a complete beginner, you can recognize the most famous basic rock beat in this exercise. Let's hear it at its preview tempo. You can select a different tempo, and at many tempos, you'll also find a drumless play-along track so you can hear the exercise in a musical context. FreeLimbs has 300+ professionally crafted drumless tracks for all music styles you'll be practicing. Let's hear how the rock beat sounds with accompanying rock music. The next 3 steps are where you'll be practicing the exercise in 3 different ways. On the practice and learn step, you'll practice the exercise while listening to the exercise's drums. This will help you internalize how the exercise sounds and feels to play, and build the coordination to play it without thinking. Then, on the Make It Groove step, you will throw the training wheels and start practicing the exercise to a metronome only, without hearing the drums. This will help you develop your own internal clock that will allow you to play the exercise in time. Finally, on the Lead the Band step, you can choose to practice the exercise while jamming to a music track, so you can feel and retain the sensation of playing with a band and leading it with your groove. Now let's open a checkpoint exercise so you can see how a multi-measure exercise looks like, but also so you can see all controls in the toolbar, which you can use to customize your practice. The first thing you'll notice is that on wide screens, the exercise displays 4 grids instead of just 1. On narrower screens, such as your smartphones, you'll see only 2. In the top right corner, you can also see a badge showing +36. This means that the entire exercise is 40 measures, grids to be precise, 4 visible on the screen, plus 36 more. As a reminder, checkpoint exercises combine the individual exercises you have played so far into a single multi-grid exercise, arranging the individual exercises in some random order. You'll learn how to customize this to some extent a bit later. If you don't like the arrangement generated by default, you can click the Generate New Exercise button on the toolbar and create another combination of exercises. You can do it as many times as you want until you find your interesting combination. As with individual exercises, you can preview what the exercise looks and sounds like to familiarize yourself before you start practicing it. Note that when the preview starts, the app will always display only two grids. The first one will show you what you're currently playing, and the second one, what's coming up next. Notice how the second grid's notes, which are played by the separated limbs, are slightly dimmer. When practicing checkpoint and mastery exercises, this is where you'll need to focus your attention so you can prepare yourself to play the upcoming grid. Now, let's walk you through the toolbar controls. With the volume button, you can change the volume of the exercise drums, the play-along track, and the metronome before and during a practice session. In addition, these volume settings are per exercise step because you might want to have the play-along loud on the lead the band step, but barely audible in the practice and learn one. Next, let's look at the tempo and play-along track selector. Depending on the style of music, you may see 3, 4, and even 5 tempo ranges from very slow to very fast. To select a tempo for your practice, click on a tempo box. If the tempo does not have available play-along tracks, which is usually the case for super slow tempos, the pop-up will close. If the tempo does have drumless tracks, then you'll be able to select any of these to accompany your practice. The tracks depend on the style of music, so you won't get rock tracks in your jazz workouts, and vice versa. If you're looking for a particular genre, use the filter to find only tracks of a particular genre. You can preview all tracks without leaving the pop-up, and when you're ready, click the Set as Play Along button to set both the tempo and the drumless track for your practice session. Also note the practice intensity legend. Once you start practicing a groove at different tempos, you'll see a bar on top of the tempo boxes with varying intensity of the green color. This will tell you which tempos you have practiced and how much more you've practiced each tempo compared to the rest. One of the most important traits you'll need to have as a drummer is the ability to play any groove at any tempo, from very slow to very fast. So make sure you play at all, or at least a lot of tempos, and many times. Some ostinato patterns can be played on different instruments, the hi-hat, the ride cymbal, or the floor tom. Playing the separation patterns against the ostinato on different instruments will sound and feel different, but it will help you find a proper posture and will improve your mobility so you can move around the kit and be able to play the ostinato on both sides of the drum set. Let's choose the ride cymbal and see how it changes the feel of the groove. In this example style, the ride is mostly used in chorus or bridge sections. Advanced drummers are going to love this one. The button with the pendulum icon controls the swing of the exercise. If you don't know anything about swing, here's a brief explanation. You're also going to hear it, so don't worry if you don't get it at first. Note how the notes in the exercise are currently equally spaced. In swing rhythm, the pulse is divided unequally, so the notes alternate between long and short durations. In the example here, if swing is applied, every odd note, 1, 3, 5, and 7, will be swung and take longer time than usual, and every even note, 2, 4, 6, and 8, will take shorter than usual. But enough talk. Let's apply the traditional triplet swing, where every first note takes 2/3 of the total time for the 2 consecutive notes, and every second note takes 1/3 of the time. You'll hear it, and you are also going to see it. Note how every odd note takes more space than usual to hint you that it's a swung note. Let's also slow down the tempo a bit so you can hear more clearly how the exercise's feel changes. What you heard is one of the 4 kinds of swing. Want to learn to play in between the cracks like Zigaboo Modeliste from the Meters? We have you covered. You have to learn to play grooves in a swung fashion to be a complete drummer. In fact, gospel, hip-hop, and other genres demand this feel. If you're an advanced drummer and don't feel challenged enough by an exercise, you can extend it with optional patterns like ghost notes on the snare drum or hi-hat stomps. In fact, let's do that and see how much it will change the feel, but also how much it will increase the difficulty of the exercise. We'll leave the swing too to make it even more interesting and harder. Let's hear how this new exercise sounds like. These variations will keep you occupied for a long time. That's a promise. Speaking of promises, we meant to show you how you can customize checkpoint and mastery exercises. When you click the Customize Exercise button, the first thing you can choose is whether the checkpoint exercise should include all exercises you have played before you reach the checkpoint, or only the exercises between the previous checkpoint and this one. By default, you're going to get a sequence of randomly selected individual exercises, and some of these could be added in several places, while others will not be present at all. If you want to make sure that every individual exercise is included, then select the Every Other Exercise option. In checkpoint and mastery exercises, you won't automatically get repeating patterns in the freed limb, in this case the kick. But when performing, you would typically want to repeat these, unless you're Matt Cameron of Soundgarden and Pearl Jam fame. When you click Repeat Combinations, the checkpoint exercise will create pairs of individual exercises and repeat them randomly in the exercise. If you want to see these next to each other, click the Side-by-Side option. If a checkpoint or a mastery exercise is too hard and you want to have more time to prepare before seeing the next pattern, you can insert empty measures where you'll only play the ostinato. That's perfect for jazz comping workouts. In mastery exercises, sometimes the number of notes played by the freed limb become too much, especially when the limb is your right foot, as in this example. You can limit both the maximum number of kicks per grid, or you can limit the number of consecutive hits per instrument. Finally, if the exercise feels too long, feel free to shorten it. The QR code button is useful when you've found and customized an exercise on your computer, but want to send it to your mobile device for your practice. Simply scan the code with your device, and it will open the very same exercise with the same variations, tempo, and play along. If you're into linear drumming or gospel chops, don't forget to check out the linear workouts tutorial too. And thank you, my fellow drummer, for using FreeLimbs.